All right, everybody. Was that loud? It's too loud.
That was pretty loud.
Can you hear me out there in Never Land? I hope so. Let me turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
It's too loud. Oh, I gotta mute that damn TV. Can you hear me out there in Never Land? I hope so. It's too loud. There we go.
Yeah, I don't have the feedback now.
Yeah, it helps when you turn it off.
That was
TV
fine.
off. Want to welcome everybody to the shows. Nick, of course, glad you're here once again.
It's always fun.
It's always fun, maybe a surprise here and there. But what we're going to talk about today is a few questions about this and about that. But first of all, shout out to the sponsors of the show: Prue Law office down in Swainsville, Missouri, gold sponsor, keeping us afloat down here. Also, I want to shout out to who's the that makes the gyros? Spartan. Wow. I think Nick can smell my breath because the garlic's so strong, but man, was that good. It's good. Boy, it's good. But thank you so much for a great, I hope we can partner up. Maybe you'll sponsor a show, get you in there. We'll come to have the show at your place. Thanks A to Z Exterminating. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the sponsors. Nick, you're one. Sure, of course, Brian and Stacy as well. So how's everything going?
It's busy.
Move your mic a little further. Closer.
Closer?
Closer. There you go.
Okay.
That's better.
All right.
Oh, I can imagine because to hold down, two full-time jobs?
No, one full, two-part.
Two-part job.
One's like being a weekend warrior for the Army Reserves. It still can be time-consuming.
Oh, I can imagine. Say, well, one of your not constituents. We got a lot of questions coming in. Counterparts in the election. Had some questions. And I actually got some feedback from a viewer and talked about the intangibles is what I call them. And that's the qualifications. You can talk about, I've got a degree, I've got this many arrests, this many awards, whatever. But the intangibles are hard to measure.
What are we getting into?
Well, we're getting to some.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what's surprising.
Is that a surprise?
That's a surprise. The first one's pretty easy. Now, you've got how many years in law enforcement? Yeah.
27.
27 years.
Yeah.
Now, in those times, you've been in how many leadership positions? Off the top of your head?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So 5 different leadership positions. Maybe talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy, specifically if you become sheriff in your past leadership positions in the law enforcement. What kind of leadership style do you bring to the table?
Somebody else has said it, I believe I did say it first, it's lead from the front.
Yeah.
So I never ask anyone that's ever asked that's worked for me, and you can talk to people that's worked for me in the past. I don't ask you to do something I can't do or haven't done myself.
Right.
And if I haven't done it, I'm going to figure it out first, and we grow that. But I'm definitely a lead from the front, firm, fair, and honest about it. Let's not play games with it.
Sure.
You make a mistake, we own it.
Right.
We fix it. We're human. I'm more approachable. I believe in taking care of my crew. Train, teach,
equip,
mentor, and equip.
Right.
Budget permitting,
Sure.
grant permitting. So, I'm trying to stay away from anything military.
For sure.
As far as that goes, but I'm more one of those ones. Hey, you make a mistake to come up, we own it, we fix it. You make a mistake, you don't own it, we're going to deal with it.
Right.
But that falls back into the transparency. The community needs to know what we're doing as well. So.
Well, that's good. That segues into the next part pretty easy here. The intangibles. Now, one of the challenges I think with any election, nation, state, local, whatever, is integrity of the candidates, and not only the candidates, but if you were to be elected sheriff. Talk about how you demonstrate integrity to not only the people you work with, but to the community at large. That your work is your bond, sort of thing. Talk a little bit about integrity.
So the integrity comes from owning what you do, right? If you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you can't do it, go back to whoever it is you said you were going to do it for, take care of, and say, hey, look, I thought I could do it, I can't, or whatever the case may be. The big thing is again, I've said it a lot about the transparency, but when the community comes to us and they say we have these issues, then we need to be able to spell out publicly, this was the issue, this is how we tried to address it, and we're unable to address it, so we're going to take a different route, how we're going to get there.
Right.
Sometimes you can't do that based on what it might be. If it's a drug investigation, well, no, you're not going to lay out a roadmap for everybody to see. But the community can see the end result, and that's what's real key. And that actually kind of comes up under community policing. I've talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
And the techniques. You'll hear some people talk about community forums or town hall meetings. Those are like group meetings. I absolutely agree with them. However, there needs to be more than just town hall meetings. With giving the feedback, the community has to be involved in the problem solving. So there's an old adage, hopefully I get this right, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Right.
And it's talking about bringing the community together as a whole, right? Because let's face it, I've done the job 27 years, we do the same thing over and over, and where are we at today? We're no closer to fixing the drug problem, burglary problem, or anything else than we were yesterday.
Right.
Or the day before, or the day before. A lot of it has to do with the throughput, point of contact on the street with an individual, to the input where prosecution rehabilitation takes place, even within our own jail. So, again, the point of contact, the community comes to us and says, hey, we got this issue, us being the sheriff's department, me, whoever's in charge, figuring out what that problem is, delving into it. Is it really a law enforcement problem to begin with?
Sure.
If we don't have jurisdiction, there may not be a lot we can do. And then how do we resolve it? And if sometimes the first attempt doesn't work, we might have to make another attempt and keep going until we figure out what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that works. The key thing is that feedback to the community as a whole. So,
Gotta remember the name before I forget something. No. But hopefully we've got some new visitors, new friends I met here at Spartan, the gear roast down there in St. Robert. Man, it was good food. But it seemed like talking to some voters, just talking about the show coming up with what we're doing here at Pulaski Talks. There still seems to be some lack of knowledge regarding the role of the sheriff. There's three primary functions of the sheriff's
department. Law enforcement and the courts, law enforcement, and jail.
Yeah.
Right. And in this community, the sheriff, they're spread thin.
Right.
So a lot of people lay it on deputies, but sometimes I've watched these guys work. They run themselves ragged.
Really?
Yeah. They run themselves ragged, and it is what it is. Yeah. Right. The role of the sheriff is not just an administrator. I've heard that repeatedly. Look,
yes, I remember you bringing that up one time. Yeah.
Look, you're an administrator, but guess what? You better be a leader, because on the back end, you got to know what your guys on the street need to do or how to fix it. And if they don't, you better be able to figure it out and lead it.
Right.
And that's what we got to have. That's where I come in. That's where I bring my experience. I'm getting a little bit up there in years. I'll admit I'd be willing to bet I'm pretty close to probably the oldest candidate on the ballot. I'll hold on.
You're still doing it.
Huh?
You're still doing it.
Still doing it. I'll do it until I can't. But so you've got to be able to lead. You've got to be able to understand this is the right way, and the right way is not always the easy way.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard, but to do it the right way, you've got to take that route.
Right.
We have laws we have to follow just like everybody else. So those three things you have to encompass. And then you have the jail. That's a beast in and of itself. You've got to worry not just about the safety of your jail staff. You're worried about their training. They have families to worry about too. And trust me, it's dangerous for the guys on the road. Try going into a jail where you're at, 100 to 1.
Right.
So it's really important that they get the training. Their safety is there. They're safe. We have to worry about the safety of the inmates, their health and welfare.
Mm-hmm.
They're our responsibility when they're in that jail, and we have to be ready for that.
Okay. Awesome. So talk about the courts. Well, sheriff's responsibility when it comes to the courts. I just want to make sure.
Bailiff duties, transported inmates,
Okay.
paper service, and there's numerous other things. I can't name them off all my head right now, but
Okay.
those are the big ones right now.
But obviously, patrolling is not number one.
It actually, patrolling is a big chunk of the sheriff's
Right.
department. You get in the statute, it talks about you're responsible for highways, public safety. A lot of people get wrapped up around the title of you are the chief law enforcement officer.
Oh, I've read that.
I love debating this one with anybody. I will stand my ground. There is nothing in the statute that I have found that anybody can show me, or any other sheriff. No disrespect to any sheriffs that might see this, but there's nothing out there that gives them the ability to come into a small town and say we're taking that case.
Really?
Nope. Nothing for the state patrol to come in. There are guidelines for like patrol or whatever.
Right.
Kind of move that. It was kind of trippy. I could see. But the chief law enforcement officer, it gives us that jurisdiction over the whole county.
Sure.
But the cities, there's been some talk. I don't know if you heard it. I got confronted the other day on it.
Yeah, I think I got a little source. A little bird told me a little bit about something I think you're going to bring up.
You mentioned it first, because I don't want to be out.
Is that about the sheriff's department taking over for the smaller towns?
Yes, and for me that would be a no.
Okay.
Would we support our cities? Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Right. I work in a small department. Worked in small departments. It's hard to fund them.
Right.
It's the nature of the beast. This isn't a ding on the small towns. It's tax based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have the taxes. It's hard to fund the police department.
Right.
So you're going to fall short. We can help fill that gap. Before we can help fill the gap, though, we've got to get our own staffing fixed and get schedules set. We got to be smart. Smart is safe. We're safe, community safe.
Now, in my past life, and where dollars talk sense, are those efforts on the sheriff's department in those small towns where this does happen? I grew up, this happened in a small town. We had the county seat, and the county seat was the only town that had a standing police department. The rest of it, the county, small towns were covered by the sheriff's department. But if I remember right, that was on a reimbursable basis. So there was a cost associated with providing that service to a municipality. Is that basically the way it worked here?
I've seen it done in other jurisdictions. So a municipality can contract with a sheriff's department, and here's my thing. If you're a small department, and I would really have to crunch some numbers. I pulled down the sheriff's budget. I'm going through those, so I don't want to get too deep into the budget until I can talk smart, if you will. But here's the thing. If you are paid better than a small town, are you going to cut them a cheap rate to try and staff that department? Probably not. So they're going to end up having to pay fuel and everything else, which means they're going to be out of pocket for that manpower. They might as well staff their own police department. Not only that, a small town police department knows their community. They know their roads. They know how to handle it. They know their ordinances. They're more accessible to the city council, that type of thing, right? Because that council, they're responsible to the public. They have to answer to it.
Right.
That's why you have a chief or whoever's in charge. So really, it's not feasible. You would have a hard time convincing me that it's feasible for this department to try and contract with the smaller agencies. I personally would say it's almost a power grab to an extent. The small towns need their police department. They are accountable to those people in that town. Right. Now the kicker is so is the sheriff's department. So if we're called, we don't do the right thing, we're accountable. The council can come yell at me if I'm sheriff, right? We pay a law enforcement tax countywide. We're responsible to the community. Come yell at me, but give me the time to fix it if I didn't know about it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So the relationship, I can tell you, I feel I have a good working relationship with the other agencies.
Within Pulaski County?
Yeah, within Pulaski, even outside.
Right.
Because we do, and Pulaski does too, with the other agencies. You have to be able to set your personal feelings aside, somebody's going to get mad, all the BS that comes with it.
Sure.
Because if somebody calls for help, it doesn't matter who I like. We're not there for that person. We're there for the community. So we got to be able to set any of those differences aside.
And depending, if you're on the other side of that needing that help, you don't really care what color the uniform is.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I've been there. I can't think of an officer in this county that probably hasn't ran some type of mutual aid
Right.
for another agency.
You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. So
Decision making. Now you can throw on some military if you want to, because it's part of it. I mean, that's when I first think by, critical thinking and all that other stuff. How do I ask this? How do you make the tough decisions when you're out there? Now, you've been a coroner, you've been a chief of police, you've been a CID agent. What kind of process do you use to make those hard decisions when it comes down to, because the sheriff's going to have to make a decision, it's go time or it's not. Let's go. How do you go about making those kind of decisions?
if you're talking like you're in the field and in a hot seat, I can tell you there was an instance when I worked for another agency in this county full time. I had an officer, he's probably going to watch this, he'll know what it is. Rolled up to a house. We had a guy under the influence of a narcotic, had been waving a shotgun around. He was standing at the door. We couldn't get him. I couldn't get my officer out of the line of fire. It was the worst tactical decision. It was a bad situation. And I was blessed. I'm telling you, the cavalry came that day. I had, I think, every agency in the county, minus St. Robert, and they were rolling over there.
Really?
And it was the real deal. This guy had a shotgun and just was completely mentally unstable.
Wow.
And I told my officer that was with me, and the other officer that was my backup, who was county, if he picks it up, we've got to take action.
Right.
And we will fire.
Yeah.
And we were fully prepared. That's the decision. You're already scanning. I already knew where the civilians were. I had officers backing them off. You make those decisions. The military gives you that, I think.
Sure.
Those hard decisions. But the only thing is I was like, I'm not going to have a guy go down on watch.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And luckily, it ended well.
Right.
No shots fired. Taser had been deployed.
Yeah.
It was bad. I couldn't get my guy out of that situation. It's all kind of a long story. Moral of the story is, when we went and cleared that house, that shotgun was fully loaded, and all that guy had to do was pick it up and squeeze.
That's it.
It was all safe. It was ready to rock and roll. And it was a slug.
Wow.
All he had to do was squeeze. It had been a bad day. So, for me, my decision making starts when you get the call.
Right.
And it stands today. It's the same way when you're in the military. You're rolling on a mission, your brain's already rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do X, Y, and Z. Backward planning.
Sure.
Here's the end game. What do I got to have to get to there? And then you backward plan up to that point. And it doesn't change. Civilian sector, sometimes you got to make those decisions pretty fast.
Right.
So it's really based on analysis and experience.
Sure.
And safety of the community, because that's why we're there. The safety of the community is always present.
Yeah, you got great. Hit it right on the nose. Hit it right on the nose. Now we're going to talk over the adaptability. We talked about decision making, on the Johnny on the spot, ready to react, situations changing. How do you put yourself in one of the situations that you've been in over your career, and how you responded to where you had to, MacGyver your way out of it? It's a tough one, but it's just talk about how you can be adaptive at the job. Not fixed in stone.
I would say, trying to think of a good one. You always get those calls where it sounds like the earth is coming apart,
Right.
meteors getting ready to hit. So your mind's already forward, okay, this is what I got to do. When you get on any scene, you get any call, you've got to hone in on what the issue is, and that's when you have to make an assessment. Okay, this is what I really got to do. You've got to be able to slow yourself down. A lot of people are like, I'll show up. I'm like, okay, what do we got?
Yeah.
It takes quite a bit anymore to get me fired up, and, just out of kilter.
Mm-hmm.
Is just the way it is. But it took 27 years to get there, right? So it's a matter of slowing your mind process down scanning that situation, assessing it, and making sound decisions. It's not one of those, I'm going to rush in, and hit everything with a hammer just to get through a wall.
Right.
Sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you can simply turn the door and open it and go through.
Yeah.
It's being able to assess, and sometimes those assessments have to be really quick. And that's just one up. Are we on target, or are we?
You're good.
Did I get off? Okay.
No, you're good. Talk about adaptability, reacting.
Okay.
And adapt to changing situations and scenarios. Stacy Mike. No, okay, I got it. I'll turn yours down. That's my buddy in Alaska. But probably your side, Rich. You know how it is.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of that.
Mike's, no, that sounds pretty good. All right. Now, how many years were you coroner and deputy coroner? Can you count that?
I was appointed coroner for 3. I stepped down to run for sheriff. Roger was appointed since wow. Forgive me, Roger, that slip. When he won the election. I've been a deputy under him since. So
Okay.
3, 4, 7, 8.
Well, we've got a plague in our county. Drugs like every other county.
That's an understatement.
And it always seems to come up, especially our guests, with our guests and our watchers, is talking about there's 2 sides of it. Actually, 3 sides. You got the law enforcement, you got the criminal, and you got the victim, and sometimes they're intertwined. And the bad side associated with being the criminal or the victim is a family's waiting. And sometimes when you're as a coroner, I bet there's some bad news you had to leave. Talk about empathy. That's what how do you put yourself in somebody else's perspective? Their paradigm.
So here's what I can tell you. I lost a son, not the drugs, in an accident. Lost a grandson in an accident. And so when you go to a scene, I don't really care so much how they died at that point. The family just lost a child.
Right.
That is a focus. And that's where we've got to kind of set that, oh, it's a doper. No, it's not a doper. That's somebody's child. So you got to get that put aside. You got to set. That's sometimes difficult to set that cop side apart. You know what I mean? And you've got to be able to get past that, and then you got to give the family answers, because it's a lot of times I ran into one. Well, I thought they were clean or whatever. And then when you start to delve into it, you realize, well, had they been slipping? Were they running into difficulties with employment? Because you'll find that.
Sure.
Or a relationship that they just have a bad breakup, and they thought their life was going good, and and then all of a sudden they spiral out, and they need a stress reliever, because that's what a lot of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, they OD again. So you've got to be able to understand and come from that. And having lost, I'm actually the youngest in my family, so I'm pretty much watched my family pass away. So I understand when you go in there, it doesn't matter how they lost them. They lost.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that stinks. And I can tell you, I've had addicts who've gotten clean, whose children had followed their paths, and then they lose them. And that, so where are they going through?
Right.
They get clean to try and help their child
Right.
get straight. What do you say to them?
Yeah.
Not much you can say other than you're sorry what's happening to them. So you got to be able to suck it up a little bit and realize that's a parent, that's somebody's son, grandson, daughter, whatever that case may be, cousin.
Right.
Cousins are thick as some other relatives, you know what I mean? So the family dynamics, you got to remember that it's not just an addict that's passed away. And then on the same side is, when we're dealing with them as law enforcement, this is not a soft side at all. But when you're trying to fix the drug problem, remember when I said if you want to go far, go together.
Right.
That's where the whole community's going to have to come together with law enforcement. We're going to have to quit saying we'll arrest them, put them in jail. That's not working right. So as a community, we're going to have to fix this problem. And the reason being is because they're victimizing not just themselves, but their kids, their parents, you know what I mean? And that's what happens. So we're going to have to break that chain.
Right.
And we're going to have to take a different approach. That falls up under community policing and different programs within community policing. But when it comes down to it, I've been there. And man, I'm telling you, wait until you tell a loved one they can't see their child.
Right.
Because they've been down for a week. They can't send them. You don't want them to see them in that condition. Right?
Right.
Wait until you get that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a good perspective on. I'm telling you, being a coroner taught me some very valuable lessons. Because I used to be pretty curt.
Yeah.
And pretty point blank.
And there's probably no substitute for first-hand experience.
Nope. And when I got appointed coroner, it was like, here's you some body bags. This is not a joke. Here's you the case files. Go do good things.
Wow.
And, you know, you go out, and I was, you know, I had sympathy for the families. I understood it. But you kind of realize, man, there's a lot of dynamics in there. You know, these families have spent time over and over trying to help their loved one, couldn't do it. Sometimes, what's the old saying? Takes a village, right?
Right. Takes a village. Yeah, it takes a village.
Yeah, village raise a child. So sometimes we've got to come together to help the families because they can't. They're at wit's ends.
Right.
So we've got to not put the badge down because we've got to do what we got to do. But we've got to take a different path to fix this problem.
Probably more pooling of the resources rather than stovepipes.
Yeah, and now we're not talking about spending a ton of money here.
Right.
We're talking about resources that are available.
Right.
Most community problems can be solved within the community. And if there is a gap, that's where you go look for federal funding, something of that nature.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, viewer from Stacy's show this past day had a great question. I believe it was Darren. But if you were elected sheriff, and after how many terms you want to be sheriff, what would you consider as a benchmark for success? I mean, your legacy, for lack of a better term. I know that
that is a good one.
That is a good one. That's a good question, so that's why I'm stealing it.
So I look at 8 terms, but I believe in looking at it in 4-year chunks, 4-year terms. Where do I want to be at the end of this term, or 4-year term? What I want to have is a percentage, I want to say 50% in drug overdose deaths, but honestly, doing the job, I don't know if we can reach that goal. Let's shoot for a 10%. Once we figure out really what we have, and then once we get programs in place, after that first 4 years, you know, I'd like to see, you know, a 25% reduction. Basically, I need to do a little more research.
Sure.
But I'm ballparking, you know, my concept was about 25% reduction in overall crime. The goal is 100% reduction in drug, but that's not going to happen. But 50%, I think we can reach in a 4-year term and maintain. At the end of that first 4 years, I want to be able to have a full staff, jail, deputies, solid schedules, and then within that first 4 years, I want to stabilize attrition.
Right.
You know what I mean? We get good, focus on good recruiting, and stabilize that attrition. Let's quit bleeding people, bleeding money.
Retention is a big problem.
Yep. And you know, everybody goes to bigger, better departments
Sure.
or whatever. Let's focus on that. So that first 4 years, the reduction in the drug-related deaths is where I'm at, and that's going to impact the drug-related crimes, which will then, in concept and in theory, go into the burglaries and thefts because that's what's feeding the drugs. So at the end of 8 years, I hope to be on cruise mode with the department. Everything runs smooth. Be bringing in more money. You're not a money maker, first of all, right? Unfortunately, law enforcement's always been kind of a black hole. But by the end of my 8-year term, I'll see where I'm at 8 if I do 12. But I would love to be able to have the agency accredited, CLIA or some other fashion, and which is all about transparency, community policing, reduces insurance, reduces liability, gets your jail accredited. Short term, within the first 4, I'd like to at least get the jail accredited because we all know it's a beast. We know we have problems. Let's get it accredited. Let's fix that jail within the first year. We're going to have a hard hit. We're going to get in. We're going to get a little bit dirty.
Gonna get dirty, yeah. We're going to
iron out some kinks. and then we're going to work on that progression on that point. But attrition's a big one in the first 4 years, getting everything stabilized. Everybody's like, oh, we're going to go. But right out of the chute, we're going to hit crime. We're going to hit the dope.
Yeah.
You can bank on it.
That's
if
awesome.
I got to get dirty, get in a patrol car and hit it, I do it anyway. It's all good.
That's all good. I don't have any big questions, but I do like to open up the floor to you if you want to say anything to the audience, near or far. Before we meet, I think we'll meet again either next week or the week after. Next week's July 4th. So
yeah, we got an event. We'll see. Let me know.
Okay.
I don't know what your schedule is. Who else you got coming in? Maybe we can do one.
Yeah, tag team.
Quick. We'll see if somebody else wants to come in.
Sure.
Tag team, one of the other cans. I don't really care. Again, I was telling somebody last night, look, I'm not a politician. I'll back my resume. I'll stack my work and my resume on top of anybody's. But it's time we have a sheriff that can come in and lead. I will stand with the community. If I mess it up, I'll own it and fix it. I'm human.
Sure.
We're not perfect. There's going to be errors. I believe accountability on a budget. The budget gets put where it needs to be put because we're supporting a community, which includes our courts, jail.
Sure. Man, the compulsory support, you have to do it.
So, contrary to common belief, I can work with a lot of people and I can make things work. If I don't sleep doing it, so be it. I've proven it before. I'll do it again.
I think Ron Long said he didn't sleep for the first year, or was it him or JT or JP?
No,
One of them said
say that was wrong. Maybe
I think it's wrong because he said he didn't because JT was before him.
JB King was before
that's right.
Ron, so it was JT, JB, Ron, Jim.
Gotcha.
So,
that first year is, I think, in any new job.
Yeah. So
a caveat? It just makes me think. And I've interviewed you, Ryan, and Stacy. I haven't talked to Rex, which is understandable. Get him a sippy cup, okay? That's my buddy from way back, best friend for years. But the sheriff is an executive officer or executive level position, as far as I'm concerned. The department, how many people? 50? Just guessing.
Without knowing how many admin, they got a couple of admin, and without knowing exactly how many dispatchers and jail staff, they got about 52, 53 deputies on the roster. And some of those will be your bailiffs. So, you're probably around the 70 people mark, 70 replaced, maybe more, actually. I'm way under that mark.
Have you ever seen a situation where somebody comes off the street from a lower graded position with little or no responsibility other than doing the job itself and take over an executive position and succeed?
Not in the civilian sector, no. And again, we need to get away from it's only administrative.
Right.
In a large county, yeah, that might be true because you're going to have a ton of rank below you that runs the show. But the guy at the top, nonetheless, has to know what's going on below him because if somebody makes a bad decision, he's going to know it. And here's what's really interesting. I'll challenge anybody. Look in the statute for the qualification for sheriff. Age 21, post-certified, you got a post-license, right? Peace officer license.
Which means you've gone through you got a credit through the cert academy, right?
You got a license. And you got to be a resident of the county.
That's it.
Now, go and look at job announcements for chief.
Right.
Master's degrees. They want you to have gone through the FBI National Academy or an academy similar to that, right? The Chief Associate has one that's called Command College. Career progression where you can show them that progression. I started out as a line officer. I became a road sergeant. From road sergeant, I went to special tactics. And by the way, I was still a road guy, but went into special tactics. And then I went to detective, and then I went to lieutenant. And then they want that progression.
Sure.
Right, for these, especially larger agencies. And yet, where do we, a sheriff does not have to do that. Pretty much you can take a guy right out of the academy that's lived here for, 30 years and Well, he meets the requirements by statute.
It's
not even a requirement. It's what makes you eligible to run for
eligible,
sheriff.
Or
There is
minimally qualified, or eligible,
yeah. So, basically, anybody can file for sheriff, as long as they hold those things by statute.
Because I've been around a little bit. A year younger than you, I think you see admitted. I just got a lot more beautiful.
I got you by like a year.
But I got this beautiful mane going on. But anyway, just thinking about been in positions where somebody didn't know what they're doing. I've been in that case before, where out of my depth.
Yeah.
But when it's the sheriff's office, you're talking about lives. You're talking about laws. You're talking about responding to situations that require somebody to wear a firearm. I mean, who do you want? Who would you expect to be in that position to say yes or no? And it bothers me to think that some people think light of this, that think they can actually just step up and go.
And their intentions might be
sure, they're good
intentions. But here's what my concept is. The guy at the top or gal, if they don't know what they're doing, they're going to hire someone to come in, right? They're going to hire a second in command or lieutenant.
Sure.
Well, how do they know what those job descriptions are, and how do they know if they're fulfilling them successfully if they haven't done the job?
Yeah.
And so that is a huge thing, and I've talked about this for years. It is amazing that pretty much anybody can come off the street that carries a badge and file. And it used to be, they changed the statute, but it used to be you had to get your post license within 6 months of winning. So
you could literally be a sheriff without being a qualified officer.
Yeah, back then, but now you have to have a peace officer license. So it's changed a little bit.
Just befuddles me. That's all it says.
It's a different animal. It's really kind of amazing because then,
it's the sheriff that's going to be on CNN, Fox News at the courthouse, answering questions.
Yeah, and then what happens? Well, let's pass the buck to the lowest common.
There we go.
Following the orders, right?
Yeah.
It can't be that way. You know what I mean? So that again comes back to a lot of we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, we are.
But what the big thing is I want to talk about community policing.
Sure.
We can do that next time. But again, that comes back to how do you lead if you haven't done it, and if you did do it, when's the last time you did it? And the statutes have always blown my mind about who can run for any office. Yeah. Pretty much, well, you're a resident, so file. Yeah. You don't have to know anything.
This ain't Andy Taylor kind of Mayberry days.
Yeah. So definitely not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of liability involved, a lot of risk.
I would almost think, speaking of that term, before we break free, is that the county in and of itself, as an insuree, would want the most qualified person to lessen the risk of having huge financial impacts on the county in claims because somebody doesn't know what they're doing. Lawsuits galore, human resources complaints because they don't know what they're doing.
And a lot of times too in politics, and that's where a lot of people have grief. I'm not a politician.
Right.
I don't, I'm not praying good old boy system. We need to put people in there qualified. It not necessarily based on who their family is or whatever that case may be.
Right.
So we need to get down to the nitty gritty and put qualified people in the sheriff's department.
Right. Awesome.
Yes, that's why I filed. So.
Okay. Well, if we got some questions, time to bring them up now. The phone number's going across the screen. If we got some new watchers, new visitors, new callers, call on in. Let's hear what you got to say. Got a question for Nick. If not, Nick's going to be back in the office at least, maybe not next week, the week after. We're looking at having a group huddle, kumbaya, with all the candidates that want to come in and show. We'll talk about police work, law enforcement ideas, thought sharing, whatever you want to call it, roundtable. Keep an eye out for that. There'll be an ad on Facebook. I'll be throwing some out. Go ahead.
There's a community candidate forum as well.
Republican
Club. You want to throw that up? It's July.
Yeah, I'll share it. It's
9th.
July 9th, and I'm actually going to try to broadcast live. Request has been sent. If you're familiar with whoever makes that decision, tell them yes, we do want to broadcast live if they haven't done it so already.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them as
Okay.
well. So
it's just not the Republican Party sheriff; it's the county sheriff. So just
yes.
remember. Oh, we got a shoe guys. I don't know who that is. Oh, that's an old number. That's from the VA. Got it. Anyway, if there are no questions, Nick, we're going to cut you loose.
We're good.
Until next time.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
everybody for joining in, and make sure you share it and look for the next alerts coming up soon. Let me get my mouse working here before I can go transition to.
You done broke it again.
Well, I'm trying to use the wrong hand. That's it. With that, we're free. And 2 and 1.